Reseda in the Los Angeles area. There's an event for homeless people around here. The Mayor Garcetti, is going to talk. His stance on homelessness is not very good, but there's going to be resources here. People who want to volunteer can get information here as well, so I'm going to go check it out. I'm not sure I'm going to film too much here, but I'll probably film afterward.
And now seeing this valley and the work that we have to do at the heart of the heart of the heart of this great city gives me so much hope and optimism, because as your mayor, I've tried to do three things: get back to basics and deliver better services, things like paving more miles of roads than we've ever paved before. Second, address our biggest challenges that have gone unaddressed for too long, like housing and traffic. I don't know if anybody's felt the housing crisis or been in traffic lately, but I think all of us can feel that. And third, to build the city of the future, to not just look right in front of us, but to look at what's next in terms of jobs and a better way to lift people out of poverty and bring the Olympics back and build the airport and everything like that. And really, you know, homelessness to me is the challenge of our lives and our time. This is the humanitarian crisis for us all. It brings us all together. It brings us across all of our backgrounds and ethnicities and ages and geography. A few years ago, I was moving a father into the first housing here in the valley that he had been in 6 years. He was the father of a teenage daughter who suffered from sickle cell anemia. And LA Family Housing had worked with him. He had gotten his daughter through high school while living in a car for 6 years. And we started talking because we were bringing a whole bunch of stuff. We were bringing donated pillows and, now he had an apartment but didn't have a home yet. And so we brought pots and pans and the towels that you need, soap and everything to really turning it into a home. And we just started talking. And he said, "So where'd you grow up, Mayor?" I said, "Well, right here in the valley." He said, "No way. Where'd you grow up?" I said, "Woodley Avenue." He said, "No way. I was pretty close by. Where'd you used to hang out?" And I said, "The Galleria, every day." Not the new beautiful gallery, the old, hot dog on a stick gallery. He's like, "I was there almost every afternoon too, or at, the miniature golf place." So where'd you go to high school? He said, "Grand High School." I said, "No way, my first girlfriend was from Grand High School." I said, "I have a daughter too." He's like, "This is my keyboard, I love music." I said, "I love music." And then we kind of sat there and he just started tearing up. And I started tearing up because I think we both realized, here we were, two Valley boys who had grown up probably seeing each other 100 times in our childhood. And one of us became the mayor, and one of us became homeless. So we often say, "There but for the grace of God go I," until we feel it. And we know it, that could be any of us. I was recently with Lucy Jones. You all know Lucy Jones, Earthquake Lucy. She helped us strengthen our building so that when we have the next big one, we'll save lives. We were doing an event, she's a dear, dear friend, and we were doing an event together, and she said, she wrote a book recently on disasters. She talked about Katrina and how when people, if you remember all those folks that were in the Superdome in New Orleans, and there were criticisms from some folks like, "Oh, those folks didn't get out of the city, it's their fault," or "What's wrong with them?" And she said, whether it's that or homelessness, over the years that she's looked at disasters, there's a strange thing that some people do. If they can blame people for their behavior, they can wall themselves off from the possibility that that might be them. In other words, we kind of dehumanize each other. So we make smart choices. We're good people. That's why we're in housing. That's why we got out of New Orleans. But those people are bad people. If they're on the street, if they're in their car, it must be something wrong with them. Instead of recognizing that as human beings, we all have challenges. We just sometimes have better luck and better networks. Sometimes we are able to be born into a situation with more resources. But what we do today to end homelessness is to connect all of us with the sameness that we are today. And I want to thank the West Valley Alliance on Homelessness, Thomas, and everybody who's brought this together. This has been an extraordinary place. Tanaz, from my staff too, has spent so much time helping to organize the United Way and everybody in. And all the work that we have done really here makes me so proud coming from the West Valley, although Woodley Avenue is technically the dividing point, so I guess I was across the street into the East Valley. But the West Valley here has really led the way of finding a way to say yes instead of no. Bob Blumenfield, thank you for working with the county and finding a place that we will have not only beds but services This is a tough issue, and I always tell people, stop thinking that you can snap your fingers and it's going to disappear. You know, if people come up to Jesse Gabriel and Bob Bloomfield and me and say, hey, I've got a solution for homelessness, like once a day, they come up 10 times a day and every day. It's like, you know those cruise ships that aren't being used anymore? We should just dock them outside, you know, on the Pacific coast and then put all the folks that are homeless in them. Or usually Palmdale and Lancaster get a lot of requests, right? Let's just put everybody up in Palmdale and Lancaster in the desert and like figure it out from there. And I actually checked with the mayors of Palmdale and Lancaster. They're not asking, they've got their own native homeless population. They're not asking for LA County to send the entire population up there. You see, what we learn on the streets is that most people who are homeless have last been housed right where they are homeless. Mm-hmm. And you're more likely to be from Los Angeles if you're homeless than if you're housed. So that's not to say we can't find that person who came from another place, because many of us are from another place. Who wasn't born in LA? Raise your hand. So see, I mean, we're a town of migrants who come from inside the US and other countries and stuff, but what we understand is that people were last usually housed in that neighborhood, and oftentimes many of them grew up in the neighborhood where they're currently homeless. And you have to solve it in that same neighborhood where their friends still are, and where their family may be, and where they need to build a life, what they're familiar with. Another suggestion, people say, why don't we just get Dockweiler Beach and put up a whole bunch of tents? I'm like, with no public transportation, not one store, no place to get a job, we have to connect people back to what they feel and know in the path forward. And so all the people who put this together today, the planning committee, the agency providers at the tables, Assemblymember Gabriel, thank you for your work. We had this week signed into law from his colleague, and he supported it, Assemblymember Miguel Santiago, and Bob Hertzberg carried it in the Senate. AB 1197, which now says that all of our shelter beds and all of our permanent supportive housing are exempt from CEQA. They still have to buy CEQA, but the challenges that can keep it 2 or 3 years before they move forward are gone. And they did it with an urgency clause, so it's in effect right now. You know, we've done that for like our stadiums, and as Miguel said, if we can do it for our billionaires, I think we can do it for our brothers and sisters that are unhoused right now. So that was a great piece of legislation that moved forward. All the volunteers that are helping out here today, all the performers, One Generation, our site hosts, let's give them a round of applause. Everyone who donated to this, let's thank our LAPD officers. We have the finest social workers in uniform in this country. And I say that intensely because the old saying is, police officers aren't social workers. I believe they are, and they save lives every single day. The best police officers are, and they use their emotional intelligence.
Who falls into homelessness, the effort and the money and the resources it takes to pull them back are so much more significant. Another bill where landlords and tenants came together to negotiate a compromise that would give more people the opportunity to house someone, a friend, a family member, a neighbor who is at risk of homelessness. Right now there's a lot of legal barriers. Someone who wants to bring in a cousin who may be at risk of homelessness would worry that they themselves could be evicted, because they'd be violating the terms of their lease, and we are going to change California law so that person can bring a friend or a neighbor in and help them remain off the streets. And then also legislation that's been focused on part of this crisis that I think is too often underreported, which is the homelessness crisis among our students. The numbers of community college students, of CSU students, of UC students that are facing homelessness is unbelievable. More than 10% of college students in the state of California reported experiencing homelessness at some point last year. And it is absolutely heartbreaking. I have sat and heard testimony from veterans who've gone and served our country in Afghanistan, who've come home, who are working, who are trying to put themselves through school, who can't make ends meet, and who are sleeping in their cars. So we have such a moral obligation to address this issue, and I could not agree more strongly with what our mayor said about the fact that this is something that crosses demographic lines, that crosses geographic lines, that crosses racial and ethnic and age barriers. In the past week, I've spoken to a number of groups here in the West Valley. One was a senior home here in Reseda, where my grandmother lives, and the other was an elementary school and a middle school in West Hills. In both of those conversations, whether it was from 80-year-old people who had lived in the San Fernando Valley for 75 years, who wanted to know why they continue to see this increase in homelessness, why they were seeing things they had never seen before, or the 10-year-old kid that looks up at you and looks you in the eye and says, why is it that kids are living on the streets? Why can't we find somewhere to put these children? And that is such an incredibly difficult thing as a policymaker or anybody else, to look down into the eyes of a 10-year-old who looks like they're on the verge of tears and says, why can't we do more? And the truth is that we have to do more, and I know that those of you who are in the room today understand that. And that's why you're here, because you are part of the solution to this crisis. But what it's going to require is all of us working together. We're going to have to work with the LAPD, we're going to have to support the city and the county, the really hard work that Bob Blumenfield is doing on this issue, and the other elected officials, all of the faith community that has stepped up to the plate, the business community, realtors. Everybody has a role to play in solving this crisis. And so I want you to know that those of us at the state level are absolutely committed to providing the city and the county the support that you need to tackle this head on. And I want you to know that we're going to provide you the political support too. I know that not every decision on this issue is easy. We're not going to solve homelessness in a way that's going to make all 4.5 million Angelinos happy. Not everybody's going to agree on the solution. I know that not all 10 million people in the county of Los Angeles agree on what we should do. But we're going to ask our mayor and our city council members have had to take some tough decisions, and I want you to know we're going to support you when you take those decisions. And we should give them a big round of applause so that they know that they have it. Even when you're as popular and charismatic and well-spoken as our mayor is, these are tough decisions to make. You know, to go down to Venice and to be in front of a group of people that are really pushing back and don't necessarily speak for the community, but that's hard. And there are a lot of folks in politics that I've talked to that say, I don't want to touch the homelessness issue. It's too risky, it's too complicated. It's, you know, there's mental health and there's substance abuse and there's all these broader economic issues, and it's just too complicated and dangerous, and I don't want to touch it. And it's exactly, our mayor's done exactly the opposite. And our city council's done exactly the opposite. They're running towards this issue. So I want to thank you, Mayor Garcetti and Councilmember Blumenfield, for your work on this issue. I want you to know that the city and the state is behind you. And I want you, all of the groups out here, please understand that the state is here to help. We want to be part of the solution, and we're so grateful for the work that all of you are doing. Thank you.
So that alone, when you just look at that, that's going to tell you why a lot of people are falling into homelessness. And if you're one check away or one illness away from homelessness, then that's going to push you over the edge. So we're trying to do everything we can in the city and locally here in the district. And I see a lot of friends out here and folks who worked on the issues locally. And I like to remember that it's about the people who are on the street. It's about Marisol, who's behind my office every day. She's literally going through the trash can. We all know her very well. She's 23 years old. 23. And there's all these services for transitional youth, which is also a number that went up. We have over 6,000 transitional age youth in our county who are homeless. And that number went up this last year. But I mean, I think about her and how we can try to get her into services. But she's very reluctant because she had some issues when she went into a shelter, so she's scared to go into the shelters. I think about a success story. There's a woman, I'll change her name and call her Mindy for right now, came to our safe parking lot behind my office with her child. Fortunately, we were able to get her. She's into housing now. But you talk to people who are in safe parking, and we finally got safe parking behind my office. We've been pushing that for a couple of years. And the bureaucracy behind it is painful. I'm hoping that we've paved the way and that we're going to make it easier for additional safe parking. But when you think about the least we can do, that's the least we can do, is give someone a place to park. But you talk to the folks there in the stories, generally they're just grateful to be somewhere where they're not going to be harassed by either a predator on the street or because they're in the wrong area, someone telling them to move along. That can make the difference. Getting a night's sleep. I know I'm a crazy person when I don't get enough sleep. I can only imagine, if you're sleeping on the street and you can't get a decent night's sleep, what that can do to you. It makes you appear like you're crazy or you're not thinking correctly, or it's difficult to think correctly. Sleep is so important and it's so hard to get when you're on the street. But I think about her. I think about Malcolm, who is another success story we've had with a program we have with Tarzana Hospital. This is I don't know if I'll tell you how this hospital came out. It's an interesting story. One of the struggles we have in the city is we don't really have money for services. That's really the county's deal. We don't have money for mental illness. We don't have money for drugs, drug addiction. So we partner with Lawson. We do what we can. But I'm struggling with this. And so when Tarzana Hospital came up they were redoing their hospital, great hospital. Usually when that happens, you legally shake them down for lots of good things for the community. A traffic light here, something there. They came to me asking for a lot of different permit requests. And I said to them something very unusual they'd never heard before. I said, I will help you get every permit you need, but I need you to do one thing. I need you to invest heavily in helping us with folks who are drug addicted and mentally ill on the street, because we don't have the city programs for them. And so they kind of went back to had some meetings, and it was a very unusual request. They were expecting me to ask them to do 10 different things, and they came back with a great program with Tarzana Treatment Center, where they partnered up, and they now put patient navigators in the emergency room. So the emergency room has a patient navigator who's there, whenever somebody comes in. When someone comes in off the street, they're usually at their lowest point. They've just been Narcan'd back to life, or they've just had a bad fall or whatever. And there's someone there who offers them services, and more importantly than that, they've invested in 2 houses with the Tarzana Treatment Center where they refer the person. And the person can go directly from the hospital to the house where their physical and mental issues can be addressed. And this is in the interest of the hospital too, because it helps their frequent flyers cost them a lot of money. The amazing thing is we're starting to see metrics on this, and it's about 40% success rate, which is incredible considering the success rate that we normally get in different programs. So that's a great success story. There's a lot happening across the district. I see Debbie over there with Prince of Peace Church. So much is happening there, Woodland Hills. She deserves a big round of applause. Go there to volunteer sometimes, and also just to see the great work that they're doing. They're right around the corner from where I live, and it's incredible. And people are stepping up all areas in my district.
I had no place to call home. I had always lived from here. I stayed here. I lived here. I stayed here. So in all those stays, I thought I had a place to call home. I thought it was my home. But in actuality, it was someone else's home, and I was couch surfing as I learned these words further down the line. But I went to West Hollywood after being pushed down. I remember seeing in the city hall something that had a housing something on there. I don't know what it was about, but I remember in 1999 I saw that. And I went there and I asked them, can I have housing? They told me that's not what that was for. It was for rent control. But one of the gentlemen remembered me. So he gave me a number, and he gave me an address, and he gave me a name to go to a place called PATH, People Assisting the Homeless. Well, the homeless part didn't meet me because, see, I didn't know I was homeless. So that wasn't my part, but I needed the assistant. But I ended up in PATH. I went from PATH Hollywood to PATH Madison, which is like a step up. I was very, very angry. I was so angry, not only angry because my mother had passed away and she was the love of my life, but I was angry because I found out that all those years, from 14 to 53, was my age that I stepped into PATH, that I had never had a key of my own or a rental agreement. It was devastating. So they helped me through a series of anger management classes because I needed them. I really needed them. They also helped me through grieving because I didn't know how to grieve. The anger was turning to grief, the grief was turning to anger. It was all confusing. But they helped me. But then I found out that after being there in all those situations from 14 to 53, I had kind of condemned myself to having housing. There was like people leaving, mothers and children leaving to get housing, but I was still there after almost 2 years. I didn't understand why I wasn't getting housing. I really just did not understand. But then I found out, as I went further into this, that the reason why I did not have housing because of my background. I didn't have an eviction. I just had incarceration. I didn't have drugs. I figure I felt with some part of mental illness. I really do, because I went through a lot. never took medication for it, did seek counseling, but that wasn't my problem. My problem was my background. So I decided to go down to the Section 8 office on Wilshire, 3600 Wilshire, with a bag lunch that was provided every day by PAF when you're going out for job hunting or, just out for the day. And I sat there for 3 days. On the third day, the security officer, noticing that I'm there for 3 days, asked me, "Why are you not seeing anybody?" So I told him, "Well, I'm here for housing." They said, "You come here and you get housing." I'm just waiting for somebody to ask me for the help, like, "What can I do for you?" He said, "Wait a minute, let me go tell someone at this desk." So he went to the desk and he must have told them that I had been here for 3 days with a sack lunch, eating, sitting in the back, watching everybody go back and forth. And so he told me to come up. A lady signed my name on a list. A woman came to the door and greeted me, walked me to the back, set me on one side of the table, and she was on the other side of the table. And I told her my story. Didn't hold back nothing, told her the truth. She told me she couldn't help me. She said, "Ma'am, we don't have housing for individuals that's been incarcerated. You've been there a long time, and we just don't have that kind of help. This is for people who have families and don't have that background that you have." Well, somewhere along the line, being at PATH, I learned that I could ask for a supervisor. So I asked for a supervisor, very politely. "May I please speak to a supervisor?" She looked at me as though I'm wasting my time. Somewhere in my heart, I didn't feel I was wasting my time. So the supervisor came out. I told her the exact same story. But for some reason, this particular woman had empathy. And she decided at that moment that she would help me. She said, "I'm gonna help you. Sign these papers, fill this out, do this, do that. Let me have your ID, let me have your social security card." She took the picture, she put everything together, and she said they'll be contacting me. Well, when I left away from that Section 8 office, getting on the Wilshire bus, getting on the Vermont bus, going back to PATH on Beverly and Madison, I left with the word hope. I hadn't heard no word like that before. Like everybody always told me I'd never go any further than where I had been. My mom did, but she was dead. But she said hope. So I held on to that like a clutch. I told the counselor at PATH that I had spoke to this individual, and, "Oh yeah, I know so-and-so, that's how that went. Well, time went on. One morning I woke up and there was an envelope on my metal drawer. I looked at the envelope. I thought it was something to do with PATH, but when I opened it up, it had an appointment date for me to come pick up a voucher. I didn't know how to react at that moment because, see, I didn't know what the voucher meant. So all I knew is I'm supposed to go there and pick it up. So I did. I went with the counselor because I didn't know what I was going for. I got this long envelope, about this long, and then in it said, "You have a budget of this amount." Well, I needed help with that because I didn't understand what that meant. Well, they had built an apartment right around the corner while I was at PATH. So I hurried up around there, and I met the gentleman, Mike, and I said, "Okay, so I got this voucher. Can I live here?" He said, "No. I have something better for you." I said, "What?" He says, "You're a really, really nice person. They just opened up a new building out here in North Hollywood. It's a senior villa. And I'm gonna send you over there. I know the guy over there. I'm gonna send you there." So I got on a train. Believe it or not, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, but did never come to North Hollywood. So that was good. So I get there, I get off the train, I walk over there, I fill out all the papers and everything, and of course, being in PATH, I was able to save. I gave my information to a gentleman named John Wilson, and he said he will contact me when all this other stuff comes through. Well, I hadn't been evicted from anything because I never had a place. So anyway, on the 28th of December, he called and said, you can move in. I got in the cab and I only had a little stuff. I had, you know those little pulleys that you pull like this with the little package, you know? That's what I had. All my life was in this suitcase. I get to this apartment, he hands me the key, and I'm literally scared to walk from that elevator where I got off at on the second floor down the hall to my door with a key. Because I thought that by the time I got in the middle, someone was gonna say stop. So I kind of walked very slow. But once I got into the door, I stuck the key in and turned it and it opened. I walked in and it was like this, I don't know, I think he raised the blinds up just because it was an empty apartment. But when I walked in, it was like, woo, you know? It was like that moment, you know, like, woo-wee. And I look around and I see a kitchen, I see the bathroom, I see the bedroom, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna be cooking on my stove. Open up the refrigerator, it was empty, but I just thought about all the stuff that I was gonna put in it and what I was gonna eat, how much weight I was gonna gain, everything. I did that. And then I went to the bathroom and I thought about, this is the first time I'm not having to worry about how long to take a shower. I could really bathe 5 hours if I want to. I could just stay in there till my toes curl up, my fingers, I could really just stay there because it's my bathroom. But what really got me is when I went into the bedroom. I have a window here and I have a window there. And when I went into the bedroom, those windows were closed. So the first window I went to would be this side. I opened it up and these birds started singing. I mean, they were singing like crazy. I didn't even know birds sing. Because when you're out in the street, you don't hear nature. I heard dogs, lots of them, because they chased me, some of them, you know. But I didn't hear a bird. I seen them fly and do all these things, but I didn't know that they had such a beautiful melody, that they were tweaking back and forth. And I felt like they were welcoming me to my new home. I dropped to my knees, and I'm gonna tell you, I wept, and I wept, and I wept, and I wept, until I couldn't stop. It's like, you know how when you cry so much now, you're crying inside, but no tears are dropping? But I knew that this was my place. And then I walked out, I missed something, because like Mr. Garcetti said, they provided some things for me. And it was in a box in the living room that I passed by. So it had pots, pans, sheets, towels, you know, soaps. It had everything that I needed to get started. And that's the moment and the day my life changed. And it hasn't been the since. It hasn't been the same since. I became a speak-up advocate for Corporation of Supportive Housing. Because I wanted everybody to feel like I felt. It's my goal, it's still my goal, for everybody to feel that moment of having something to call their own. So as an advocate, I've been able to travel from Washington, D.C. to Denver, to Washington, D.C., to Sacramento, to Washington, D.C. All the Board of Supervisor meetings. I do my 1 minute, you know that clock that they have, and you gotta watch it because it's gonna come up a minute and then you gotta be finished. Everywhere I go, and every place I'm invited, and some I'm not invited, but I hear about it and I go, because I wanna say thank you for what you did for my life. And I know many people like myself, they're not able to come here, or go there, or go there, or go there, but they're in housing. And we talk back and forth. We talk back and forth. And in that talk back and forth, we all come to the same conclusion. We are so grateful for the individuals who are not afraid to use empathy and to stand up and fight for something good. And that was my life. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody, I'm back from the homeless awareness and help event outreach. Got a ton of info. I got information from one place that they're saying they help place people in homes. So I'm going to follow up with them and see. I don't know what they can do for me, because I just hate dealing with paperwork and everything that, you know. But it was an interesting event. Kind of sad to be at, just because I was thinking, and you know, I don't even feel terrible about being homeless in a lot of ways, because even if I was in a home, I'd be just miserable with a lot of things. It's not really the homelessness itself. And actually, the one aspect I do like, I like that I can just look out at night before I go to sleep or when I wake up and see the whole sky. It's kind of nice. Like I got my secure sleeping pod, basically. What I don't like is that I have to find an area where it's going to be quiet enough, because I can't sleep on a major road that people are driving 35 miles an hour. It seems quiet enough on the outside, but when you're in your car and you feel that and you're trying to sleep, the road shakes, your car rocks back and forth. I cannot sleep like that. And on top of that, you got people speeding. You got people here with super loud cars. And this was bad enough in Virginia anyways. And when trucks go by, they are so loud and they just rock the road. So what I don't like is stuff like that. And also being worried, like, is someone going to harass me? Is someone going to try and tow me? You know, there are certain legal protections, but if somebody wanted to just harass me, or the police wanted to, there's nothing I could really do. And I wouldn't want to call the police. All I could do is, and if the police were like maliciously doing something to me, I couldn't fight it. All I could do is just say, I want to talk to my lawyer, and we'll sort it out afterwards. And in the meantime, I'm without a car. But it was kind of sad, because I was thinking, man, like, you know, we're out here talking about, and Mayor Garcetti was talking, and some other people, and they had some good words. You know, Mayor Garcetti's very charismatic, but I have a problem with him, which is that he didn't say anything, virtually anything, about affordable housing. The other people did, but he didn't. And he didn't talk about how landlords are raising rents, and how housing gets more and more expensive, how people, they did mention the people who oppose projects to help the homeless, but it was all about homeless people and connecting them with resources and stuff. And at least with Mayor Garcetti, virtually nothing about preventing people from being homeless, which includes affordable housing. Why can't we get tiny homes here? Nobody wants that. There's way too many laws stopping it. And of course, they don't want a tiny home next to their home, because they're worried, oh no, my property value is going to go down. No. Excuse me, you poor people. You don't belong in my neighborhood. Every rich person to me is a Patrick Bateman voice from American Psycho, Christian Bale. Like, you don't belong in my neighborhood. Actually, yeah, I just remembered. You belong with the poor people over there. I'm pretty rich. That's good. I'm white. Maybe if you worked harder, you'd be white too. Nothing about how it's illegal to sleep in your car in most areas if you're homeless, and it's becoming increasingly illegal just to sleep on the street. And so much hatred of being homeless is inspired by popular media figures. The president who came to LA recently. And this, to me, is the greatest city in the world, but it's part of what makes it great is that it has so much potential to be better, and so many of the great things in the country start here. But Trump was here talking about rounding up homeless people and putting them in internment camps. That shows how little he thinks of them. And conservatives are, yes, Mr. President, yes, we agree, like they're an insect infestation. That's how Dr. Drew talks about them on the radio, Larry O'Connor. The sub for Dr. Drew has been almost worse. She's just pulling her hair out, wondering like, why are homeless people allowed to live? Why can't we just go gun them down? I don't understand. Larry O'Connor saying, oh, this homeless advocate thinks that it's better that homeless people sleep on the sidewalk than businesses go uninterrupted in their services. He doesn't even think of them as human. Otherwise, he would think, well, which need is more urgent? The need to sleep a full night or the need to run your business without somebody outside on the sidewalk? So he doesn't give a damn. He hates homeless people. And so there wasn't much talk about that. It was just basically, he was talk about, yeah, better solutions than maybe what had been before. And they are housing more people, but still not things like taking responsibility for providing housing for everyone. Not just the jobs thing, not just the homelessness thing. There was a good talk about from a woman who talked about how, you know, people with criminal convictions, which are so easy to get, especially if you're poor or a person of color or an immigrant, keep people from getting these options for government assistance. No talk of taxing the rich, taxing rich corporations, basically changing our whole mindset. Yeah, there was good talk, there were good points, but it's easy to hypnotize into yourself into thinking, oh, that's what needs to be done. And then meanwhile, what's all the activity that's taking place look like? It's rich people, it's billionaire and millionaire landlords being able to redevelop their housing, kick out low-income people, bring in high-income people, and there's nothing illegal about them making hundreds of people homeless and thousands of people, but there's something illegal about me sleeping in my car in the street and all the other people who sleep in their cars here. They want, they didn't talk about people who, you know, lobby for zoning regulations that make it much easier for landlords and developers to be able to bring in high-income residents housing and make poor people have to leave and go into poor neighborhoods because they can't afford the rents. Predatory landlords who provide evictions for people who they just want to move out and get higher income people. They want higher rents, or they'll intimidate their tenants into moving out, cut off their utilities. They'll do things like, you know, work around the laws. Say if they were grandfathered into rent control, after a certain time when the rent control expires, like there was recently something like 30 years it was expired, so now they can raise the rents. They're preparing to just kick a bunch of people out. The Ellis Act, which means if you buy a property where someone lives and then you change it to a business, you can evict them. And there's no protection for them. So in other words, it means a lot of businesses will lie and say, that's where I was protesting a few months ago before I came here, or right after I came to LA. There was a German, a sausage restaurant somewhere in like East LA, I think. And they had bought this building where a woman lived apparently and her family. And they said, we're going to be the landlords. And then they changed it. It's like, oh, they changed their mind, like it wasn't their plan all along, and said, actually, we want to open another restaurant here. Well, they can afford a hotel if they need to. This family, this woman with an autistic child, she can't afford that. Do you think they gave a damn? We were out there protesting. The owner wasn't even there. Now, it's funny. If he thinks what he's doing is so great, why doesn't he publicize it? Well, he should put it on the menu, add on there saying, by the way, along with your meal today, eat with the satisfaction of knowing that we kicked out a poor family here. And it especially helps that they were a Hispanic family, because we dislike them. It's even easier to dehumanize them. There was one guy sitting there on the patio of the restaurant yelling at us saying, capitalism rules. Now, what was so great about what was happening? If that was so great, why was a family being made homeless? Wouldn't a rule, wouldn't it be great if it doesn't make people homeless, if it keeps them in homes? So how does that work? Why can't this guy run a business where he's not having to cheat his way into kicking people out of their homes just to have a restaurant? So, you know, that's disappointing. We're not hearing the stuff about that. And yeah, these people may care, and I don't know to what degree the other people who spoke are more active in the stuff I'm talking about. They may be, I don't know. All I know more about Mayor Eric Garcetti's, it's weird having a mayor, because I don't think Arlington, Virginia, wait, did they have a mayor? I don't know, because it was a county, I think, not a city. So I don't think we had a mayor. But anyways, yeah, just disappointing, thinking, man, nothing fundamentally is changing. We need people like you out there watching to get energized. Follow Ground Game LA, follow, you know, homeless advocacy networks in your area. Follow K-Town for All. Spread the word. Even just retweeting stuff helps. And making YouTube videos about it. Sharing videos about it. Sharing this video. So anyways, there you go. That's my thoughts. But I will check with this one place. Unfortunately, they don't seem like they're too far from where I normally stay. So I will check with them. Who knows? Maybe I'll have a place to live, but I can't stand the waiting and going hours in one place. I'm glad I went today because I was going to be selfish with my time and think, oh, I got to write today. By the way, I completed the outline of my screenplay. That was a surprise. But now I'm going to add even more to it and change it around and keep reworking it. My crime story. But still, like, man. But fortunately, in a way, like, yeah, I feel terrible about my situation in a lot of ways, but not for myself so much, and not specifically because I'm in my car, because I've learned so much from that experience. How I've learned to be way more resilient and harder working and disciplined. Learned a lot of great things, and it's enabled me to just pursue what I want, filmmaking in Los Angeles. But the things that bother me, I don't know, just it's not being actually poor, because I have, in a way, I have basically what I need, thanks to the food bank. If I did not have that, I could not survive. But I don't know, it just, I can't afford to really do more things that I want. I can't, fund the videos that I want to make. I can't create the films I want to make. But, there's a way to do all that and a way to get it done. It's just got to keep pushing and trying. I think, too, about my videos, like, they should be way more exciting. I know that a lot of times. Because when I think how people react in an audience to my mom's videos, I'm like, they would not react to my videos like that. So I got to up the excitement. But part of the problem with that, now, part of it, I got to be more creative, but also just the time issue. Got to think of, like, put more time into it when that costs money. Driving around, paying talent, paying crew costs money. I got to do a lot of other things at the same time. I'm researching my screenplays. Hey, maybe I'll be a paid screenwriter if I have a bunch of scripts written. So fortunately, my abilities there are continually moving forward. It's weird. I never know exactly what I'm going to write until the moment I actually write it. And before that, I'm thinking, oh, I'm not going to have enough to write today. Sorry. And then I figure out I have enough to write. So, and I was even making notes while in there. Anyways, hey, I hope there's more events like this, more days where people are motivated and energized to come out to stuff like this. And you all out there, you're part of that. Even, I swear, even retweeting something, it sends a message to people. It affects YouTube or Twitter's algorithm. When you share videos like this, watch them, click like, that affects YouTube's algorithm. Ultimately, it shows trends, and people are watching those trends, and they want to see what's going to be popular. And you have to, make things like this popular. The idea of helping homeless people, making sure there's affordable housing for everyone, stopping predatory landlords, predatory billionaires, predatory millionaires, CEOs, stopping development where it's going to make poor people go into poorer and poorer neighborhoods and push them into homelessness. Same thing with medical bills, that whole situation with people, and traffic here too. Hey man, imagine if LA was the most navigable city without just cars everywhere. That would be amazing. It has one of the biggest density of cars in the world, probably, and to millions of people here who drive. But that means there's also the biggest opportunity, the biggest possibility of change here. If it can happen here, it can happen elsewhere. Anyways, so keep the support going for that stuff. Click those links in the description. I always dread saying that because it's like, oh, I'm going to have to go look up all the links. But follow those Twitter feeds that I link to. And stay active. Just like and retweet stuff helps, I swear. Because if something like that, if it gets in front of enough people, people will be motivated. And I think there's way more people that ultimately support decency and helping people who are less able and are poor and sick and who are, battered and abused. There were people here who help victims of domestic violence who go into homelessness. But the problem is they're not unified, they're not aware of each other, and they're not motivated enough. It's much more motivating, I think, to hate someone. So it's so much easier for right-wingers to unify around hating immigrants, hating black people, hating brown people, hating feminists, hating women. It's much harder to motivate people to come together on let's all support this thing when so many people have different ideas of what that should look like and how it should come about, and there's so many disagreements. But ultimately there are major things you know, we can and should support. So do that.